Christian figures, themes, and stories have long been among the most frequently depicted subjects in European art, with the Virgin Mary often appearing in these works. She is commonly shown either holding the infant Jesus or mourning over his lifeless adult body. One particularly intriguing portrayal of Mary focuses on the moment of conception, when, according to Christian tradition, she became pregnant with Jesus. In many of these scenes, artists depict Mary as conceiving through her ear. Scholar Jane Cartwright, in her work on Welsh spirituality, explains, "The Holy Spirit, frequently depicted as a bird in Christian iconography, is often illustrated flying into Mary's ear at the time of Christ's conception, as in the following refrain by Ieuan Dulwyn. As it was in Holy Mary's womb, driven there in the form of a bird." This, of course, was a simple and convenient way of visually depicting the complex notion of incarnation. Cartwright further notes that the bird's entry through Mary's ear reminds the viewer of Mary's purity and physical virginity at the moment of conception, for the bird is penetrating Mary's ear, not any other part of her body. Did you know that Andre the Giant's body was flown to the US for cremation because no crematorium in France was big enough? French wrestler André Roussimoff, known professionally as Andre the Giant, suffered from acromegaly, a hormonal disorder caused by a malfunction of the pituitary gland that accelerates growth. This condition caused him to grow to over 7 feet tall and develop an enlarged head, hands, feet, and chest. In January 1993, at the age of 46, Roussimoff was in his native France when he passed away from congestive heart failure, possibly triggered by a heart attack. Biographers Bertrand Ebert and Pat Laprade noted that Andre wanted to be cremated, but there was no crematorium in France large enough to accommodate him. Even in death, his body was difficult to accommodate. His family, especially his mother, firmly refused the option of cutting him up in pieces for the cremation to occur in France. His body had already been mutilated enough. Instead, the family chose to have him cremated in North Carolina, where Roussimoff owned a ranch. Writer Abraham Reisman described the process. Funeral director Jim Weatherspoon had to borrow a forklift from a local building supply company. When the body arrived in its massive shipping container, they used the forklift to move Andre into the garage where the crematory oven was located. Weatherspoon waited until the forklift operator left before he opened the box and saw Andre's placid face. Usually, a cremation job takes one funeral home employee. Andre's took 4. With great effort, the men moved Andre's body to a different wooden container, the one that would be burned with him. It took a month for the inventor of the Rubik's Cube to actually solve it. Rubik's Cubes, puzzle cubes made up of movable colored blocks, have an astounding 43 quintillion 252 quadrillion 3,274,489,856,000 possible combinations.
Damn!
Despite this complexity, any configuration can theoretically be solved in 20 moves or fewer. If that sounds daunting, here's a comforting thought. Even Erno Rubik, the Hungarian inventor of the cube, found it challenging. When he first created the puzzle in the 1970s, Rubik himself struggled to align all the colorful sides. It took him an entire month to solve it for the first time. It wasn't initially created to be a toy. The cube's purpose was to help Erno Rubik's students at the Academy of Applied Arts and Crafts in Budapest understand 3D objects and solve structural problems. He only realized he had created a puzzle when he scrambled the cube and tried to fix it. The Rubik's Cube wasn't the first one. More than 15 years before Erno Rubik invented his cube, American designer Larry D. Nichols invented, in 1957, a 2x2x2 puzzle with rotatable pieces held together by magnets. In 1972, he was granted a U.S. patent for his invention. Would you believe Daryl Hall and John Oates met while taking cover from gunfire? It happened. Daryl Hall and John Oates, the iconic duo behind Hall & Oates, were a defining part of the American music scene in the 1970s and 80s. However, their initial meeting was far more dramatic than the average. Both Hall and Oates grew up in Pennsylvania, and like many local kids, ended up attending Temple University in Philadelphia. Each joined a different music group, Hall with the established Temptones and Oates with the rising Masters. In 1967, both bands were set to perform at Philadelphia's Adelphi Ballroom on the same night. But the concert took a chaotic turn when a brawl broke out among the audience. Hall later recounted the mayhem. There were chains and knives and shots rang out. Obviously, the show was over. We were on the upper floor and there was a lift down to the street, so I ran and jumped into it, and John Oates was in it too. I said, "Oh, well, you didn't get to go on, either. How ya doin'? You go to Temple University. I go to Temple University. See you later, bye." And that was it. That's how we met. Their paths continued to intersect, leading to a musical partnership that would eventually become legendary. The Seminole Tribe of Florida bought all Hard Rock hotels, casinos, and cafes in 2007. The first Hard Rock Cafe opened in London in 1971, and since then, the brand has grown into a global institution known for its music-themed restaurants and hotels, each featuring memorabilia and locally branded shops. In March 2007, the Seminole Tribe of Florida acquired the Hard Rock brand in a nearly $1 billion deal, one of the largest purchases ever made by an American Indian tribe. As the Miami Herald reported in 2016, for the Seminoles, the nearly $1 billion investment, one of the largest purchases ever by an American Indian tribe, was a play at going global. The goal: strengthen the brand message, improve customer service, and increase the worldwide footprint. The strategy: innovate beyond the gaming component, with all-inclusive resorts, beach resorts, city hotels, and hotel casinos. The Seminoles' influence has significantly shaped the franchise, including a 377% increase in the number of rooms at Hard Rock properties. This investment has also positively impacted the Seminole community. In 2016, each of the tribe's 4,100 members received an estimated $128,000 annually from the profits generated by the franchise, none of which included or benefited the original indigenous Seminole tribes people of Florida, disregarded by mainstream American history. Rosa Parks sued the rap group Outkast for naming a song after her. On December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white man on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, an act of defiance that ignited the Montgomery bus boycott and propelled the American civil rights movement forward. In an unexpected tribute, the hip-hop group Outkast named a song, Rosa Parks, in her honor in 1998. However, Parks did not appreciate the gesture, particularly due to lyrics like, "Everybody move to the back of the bus. Do you want to bump and slump with us? We the type of people make the club get crunk." The following year, at age 86, Parks filed a lawsuit against the group for using her name for profit. After a lengthy legal battle, the case was settled in 2005, shortly before Parks passed away later that year. Outkast sound engineer, Neil H. Pogue, reflected on the situation in a 2010 interview with Creative Loafing, expressing the group's bewilderment over the lawsuit. "It was kind of weird, because I think Rosa Parks was misled. She was misled by her handlers. They just wanted to get some money out of it. And Outkast didn't mean any harm. It was a tribute. But her people felt like it was a slander. Few know that a lady named Claudette Colvin was the original Rosa Parks. Claudette Colvin was only 15 years old when she protested segregation by refusing to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, on March 2, 1955. That was 9 months before Rosa Parks famously performed the same act of resistance in Montgomery on December 1, 1955. At the time, it was thought that the public would have more sympathy for Rosa Parks given her lighter complexion. Did you know the CIA accidentally left explosive material on a school bus for 2 days in 2016? The CIA's reputation has been tarnished by a history of covert and controversial operations, such as the 1954 coup in Guatemala and the 1953 overthrow of Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. Given these meticulously planned campaigns, one might assume the CIA rarely makes mistakes, especially considering its access to vast amounts of information and cutting-edge technology. However, a 2016 incident revealed that even the CIA is not immune to errors. That year, the agency conducted a training exercise involving a school bus at a high school in Northern Virginia, where bomb-sniffing dogs were tasked with locating explosive material hidden on the bus. But things didn't go as planned. As the local sheriff later explained, as part of the training exercise last week, K-9 explosive detection training was conducted in areas inside and outside of the high school. During the outside portion of the training material was hidden inside an engine compartment of the bus. At some point, a portion of the material appears to have been dislodged from the container and fell into the engine compartment of the bus and was not recovered following the training. Instead, the missing explosives remained under the bus's hood for 2 days, while 26 students continued their normal commutes. Thankfully, no one was harmed, and the explosives were eventually recovered. Waikiki Beach imported sand from Manhattan to fight erosion during the mid-20th century. Tourism in Hawaii has roots that stretch back to at least the 19th century. Notably, American writer Mark Twain visited Hawaii during this time, documenting his experiences in a series of letters for the Daily Union, a newspaper in Sacramento, California. Following the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom by American troops in 1893, tourism began to grow steadily. One of the most popular destinations, even in the early 20th century, was Waikiki Beach in Honolulu. Among its visitors in the 1920s was British mystery writer Agatha Christie, who famously surfed there. However, Waikiki Beach isn't a natural wonder. It was largely engineered by humans. Originally more of a wetland than a beach, 19th century developers transformed it into a leisure hotspot. As a result, Waikiki has long depended on imported sand, a need that became increasingly urgent in the 20th century. According to Chris Bailey of Hawaii Magazine, erosion and rising sea levels have caused Waikiki Beach to lose about a foot of sand each year since 1985. While this issue has intensified in recent decades, it's not a new problem. Reports from the 1920s and 1930s show that sand was shipped in from Manhattan Beach, California, to replenish Waikiki Beach. This practice of importing sand into Hawaii continued until the 1970s. Did you know New Mexico is the only state with a state question, and it may adopt a state aroma too? It's no surprise that New Mexico has a state bird, the greater roadrunner, and a state flower, the yucca, as nearly every U.S. state boasts these symbols. However, the land of enchantment stands out with something unique, a state question. Officially recognized since 1996, this question, red or green, is asked when choosing the type of chili pepper someone prefers. Now, New Mexico is looking to extend its chili pepper theme by adopting something no other state has, a state aroma. According to CNN, the proposed scent is green chilies roasting in the fall. Do you think every state should have a state question and a state aroma? Leave a comment with your suggestions.